Going into the 2023 college football season, everybody was talking about Washington's two-star receivers. It was Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan, and alongside their star quarterback Michael Penix Jr., everyone was talking about their offense and how talented these two playmakers were. Little did anybody know, though, that the guy that they had third string on the depth chart would actually become a second-round pick, could be the #1 wide receiver for the Patriots moving forward, and has so much potential in the NFL. His name is Ja'Lynn Polk. At one point, he was a pretty big recruit, but ultimately was a 3-star player who settled on going to Texas Tech. He ended up going to an extremely prestigious high school that produced guys like Kiki Cutie and Dez Bryant, but after just 1 year at the Red Raiders, would transfer to Washington, where on the very first play, he got injured so bad he had to go to the hospital. He played for an extremely dysfunctional team at the time, but ended up rising up Washington's depth chart, became a superstar for them in both 2022 and 2023, and now has insane hype with the Pats and their new quarterback Drake May. Today we're going to talk about his journey and talk about who Ja'Lynn Polk is. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Ja'Lynn Polk. So in order to understand how Polk got to this point, we first need to go back in time. He grew up in the Lone Star State of Texas, and he was used to football and extreme heat. This is notable later, as he eventually would leave the Heat for the Pacific Northwest. He's always considered a speedster with a ton of potential, and he also had a huge heart. At one point, he dreamed about racing dirt bikes or playing AAU basketball, but by the time he was in middle school, he was dedicating himself to football because his ultimate goal was to keep working so his mother didn't have to. He said, quote, "For me, growing up with the things we had to go through, to see how strong of a woman she is and how hard of a worker she is, it motivates me a lot. For her to do everything she can provide for all of us in our lives, it drives me a lot because I want her to not have to work so hard one day." When asked who he tried to emulate on the field, Polk pointed to Hall of Famer Andre Johnson and 6-time Pro Bowler Keenan Allen. Those are pretty big names to look up to. It would eventually pay off, as once he got to high school, he had a lot of hype and big shoes to fill, and he was ready to fill them. His high school coach said, quote, "He showed up as a high school freshman just full of confidence, just like he is now. He was no different then, he was just younger, but a great kid, and was always ready to go and a high-level thinker even as a freshman." He eventually arrived at Lufkin High School, which is not bad, considering they've produced some big-time receivers. Dez Bryant went to Lufkin before he went to Ohio State and became an NFL star, and then Kiki Cutie went to Lufkin before he went to Texas Tech and was at one point on the Houston Texans and is now a journeyman receiver. Polk jumped right into the action as a freshman, as he earned his first FBS scholarship his freshman year to Illinois, and then also ended up getting a couple more. He built upon his early success with a 40-catch sophomore season that earned him an honorable mention all-district honor and even more scholarship offers. While he was obviously talented, he also worked hard. His head coach said, quote, "Ja'Lynn Polk works when nobody's looking, and he put the time in when everybody else was out messing around, playing around, and everything else." This would end up leading to a breakout for Ja'Lynn. He ended up catching 40 passes for 667 yards and 6 touchdowns as a sophomore, and then as a junior, had 37 for 695 yards and 9 touchdowns. He became a first-team all-district player, and after a solid few years, he was seen as a high major player and got offers from Houston, Baylor, Illinois, Arkansas, Kansas, and Louisiana Tech. For a while though, it looked like one school was in the lead, as one of his teammates was committed to Arkansas, and he visited there a lot. He apparently really enjoyed Arkansas head coach Chad Morris, the running backs coach Jeff Traylor, and the receivers coach Justin Stepp. Eventually he got scholarship offers from 16 FBS programs, and narrowed his list to Texas Tech, Arizona, Arkansas, and Baylor. But where would he end up going? Well, eventually he chose to go to the Red Raiders, and Matt Wells got his first receiver of the 2020 class as he obtained the commitment of Ja'Lynn Polk. He ended up coming to Lubbock for an official visit on June 21st of that year, and the day after that, he would offer his commitment to them. He ended up signing with Tech in the 2020 class, but what's funny is he was sort of being recruited to Washington before he even knew it. He ended up having a teammate by the name of Caleb Berry, as he was a 2021 recruit who was a running back, and occasionally he would ask Polk for input throughout his recruiting process on where he should go or what schools he should consider. In a sense, Washington was recruiting Berry while unknowingly recruiting Polk. Ja'Lynn said, quote, "I went through the process before Berry of recruiting and trying to find the right place to go. He reached out to me a couple of times just asking for some of the input on the process and the decision that needs to be made. He just let me know that Washington is a great place to be, and he showed me some of the videos of when he went to visit and what it was like going through the process. It wasn't just me saying this recently, as I had seen Washington through Caleb's process and his decision, and I had a little bit of a bonus recruitment even before they started talking to me. Obviously that foreshadows what would happen to him after the 2020 campaign, but for now, he was a bona fide star. At Lufkin, he finished as the second all-time receiver, as he had a total of 131 catches for 2,412 yards and 24 total touchdowns. In his tape, you can see a very athletic receiver who can run his routes with quick changes of direction, and he also has the height to catch 50-50 contested balls. According to 24/7 Sports, Ja'Lynn Polk was a 3-star recruit, the number 78 wideout, and the 461st best player in the class of 2020. So, how would he end up doing in Lubbock? Well, let's take a look. So when Polk would arrive at Texas Tech in 2020, he'd play his first year with the Red Raiders, starting 7 of 10 games, and eventually finish with 28 catches for 264 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Honestly, he wasn't that impactful as a freshman, but he had a couple of good performances, including 2 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown against TCU, and 5 catches for 31 yards against Baylor. He also had 5 in a win over Iowa State, but obviously he was looking for something a little bit more. He left Texas Tech because he didn't feel the vibe was right there, and it didn't feel like his football-crazy high school was. Looking for a new place to land, Polk let his running back friend Caleb Berry know that he wanted to go there. Polk let his running back friend Caleb Berry know, and eventually he would talk him in to go into the Pac-12 program. Washington's wide receivers coach Junior Adams and Jimmy Lake contacted Polk out of the portal, and as I said, he was already familiar with the program because of his friend. He ended up choosing Washington over Houston, Kentucky, and also had 15 other offers out of the portal. He said, quote, "I was just looking for somewhere where I can develop better and come into a program where it's family and everybody's united." He ended up joining a receiving corps that lost Ty Jones, but returned Terrell Bynum, Puka Nacua, Rome Odunze, and Jalen McMillan. Pretty crazy group if you ask me. Sadly, things did not go according to plan, as in their week 1 game against Montana, he ended up getting hit so hard he had to go to the hospital. He caught 1 pass before he would miss the next 2 months, but would eventually return towards the end of the year. He ended up catching 2 passes for 60 yards and a touchdown against Colorado, and then 2 catches for 41 yards against Washington State. In total, he finished with 5 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown. Going into 2022, Jimmy Lake was no longer the head coach, and they had brought in Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix. No one really knew what to make of them, but they ended up turning around the offense right away. He became part of a big 3 receiver core that also included Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze, and early on, Polk showed flash. He had 47 yards and a touchdown in a win over Portland State, and then had a monster performance in their home victory over number 11 Michigan State. In that game, he caught 6 passes for 153 yards and 3 total touchdowns, and showed the kind of potential he would have. Unfortunately, he'd take a back burner for the next 5 games, as he'd be limited to under 100 yards and under 4 catches in all of them. They would end up losing to both UCLA and Arizona State in that time frame, but then Washington got hot to finish the year, and so did Polk. He ended up catching a career-high 7 passes in a win over number 23 Oregon State, had 3 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown in a win over number 6 Oregon, and then had 3 catches in a win over Colorado, and 4 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown against Washington State. Polk would end up finishing the year with 38 receptions for 649 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he was seen as a good player, but no one really talked about him compared to Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze. He was always considered that third option, but some are wondering if he could become the team's leading target in 2023 because of his potential. While Odunze and McMillan were proven NFL talents, Polk was always the overlooked one. One thing that was great about Polk was that he was resilient, as he also got banged up in their bowl victory over number 20 Texas, but he continued to play through it. Eventually, he would completely blow up during the 2023 season, and alongside his other 2 stars, Washington would have a historic season. In his first game, he catch 3 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown in a win over Boise, then had 5 catches for 81 yards and a win over Tulsa, and then once again torched Michigan State with 5 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown in East Lansing. He continued to get better and better throughout the year, as he then had 8 catches for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns in a win over Cal, 5 catches for 41 yards in a close victory over Arizona, and then in a pivotal matchup with number 8 Oregon, he went over 100 yards again and had a crucial touchdown catch. Washington was now 6-0, and they would finish out the season strong, as he'd catch 9 passes for over 100 yards in a win over ASU, 5 catches for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns in a road victory over Stanford, and then 5 catches against USC, and 4 catches against number 18 Utah. Keep in mind, Washington was now undefeated and hoping for a college football playoff spot, but they would have to take care of Oregon again if they wanted to do that. They'd end up playing them in the Pac-12 championship game, and in what was a thriller, he ended up catching 5 passes for 57 yards in a 34-31 victory over the number 5 Ducks. Polk had done it and helped Washington get to the playoff, and in that game against number 3 Texas, he went off. He ended up catching 5 passes for 122 yards and a touchdown, and they would take care of the Longhorns 37-31 after holding off Quinn Ewers and A.D. Mitchell's final touchdown pass attempt. After that, they'd play number 1 Michigan in the championship game, and unfortunately, they just were not able to get the offense going. Polk would catch 4 passes for 37 yards in his final collegiate game, and they would lose the national championship to Michigan 34-13. In total, Polk caught 69 passes for 1,159 yards and 9 total touchdowns. As I said, he was part of that three-headed monster with Odunze and McMillan, and he had a crazy career. He had 7 games with 100 more receiving yards in 2023, and overall in 41 college games, Polk caught 143 passes for 2,231 yards and 18 touchdowns. That's why it was no surprise he would declare for the 2024 NFL Draft and got a decent amount of hype. He was seen as an exceptional receiver with outstanding skills in catching contested passes, and he would make catches even when defenders were draped all over him. His biggest flaw was his lack of explosiveness, as he was only slightly above average in both speed and quickness. He checked in at 6'2" and 200 pounds, giving him good size at receiver. He had great hands, and also had a 37.5 vertical inch leap. He also just turned 22 on April 11th, so he was seen as younger as well. He's viewed as a physical, ultra-competitive receiver who can catch 50-50 balls and also doesn't drop it. He's extremely versatile, as he can play receiver at the X, Z, or even slot position. Scouts had a lot of comparisons, but the most common one was that he was compared to Rome Odunze and possessed similar talents and skill sets to him. According to NFL Mock Database, Polk was a projected second-round pick and the 60th overall prospect. He also had a 10% chance of going in the first round. Ultimately, he'd end up going with pick number 37 to the New England Patriots. This was a huge get for the Pats, as they were desperate to add a wide receiver to their room after drafting Drake May in the first round. They also grabbed Javon Baker from UCF, but everybody's eyes have been on Polk, who's apparently exploded during fall camp. They were in desperate need of top-tier talent at the receiver position, and they definitely addressed that in this year's draft class. What's crazy is he was the 10th wide receiver taken in the first 37 picks, but Polk's talent should not be underestimated. He said, quote, "The Patriots are getting a beast. They're getting a dude that loves football and loves his teammates, and I'm ready to build and be able to bring in a great player and a very electric person and go and win some games." He also apparently went back to his high school for a camp and told them that he wants to come back with a Super Bowl ring sometime soon. There are a lot of high expectations around their number 37 overall pick, and it's going to be interesting to see if he pans out. The Patriots haven't exactly been known for hitting in terms of the wide receiver position in the draft. Hopefully Ja'Lynn Polk will be able to change that perception. Apparently him and Javon Baker are really good friends and have been staying after practice, and it looks like those two could have a chance to play right away and play a ton of snaps. According to all indications, he's actually been the best wide receiver in their fall camp so far and has been making play after play. While success is never guaranteed at the NFL level, if his track record and work ethic count for anything, Ja'Lynn Polk is going to play a long time in the NFL and be a name that we all remember. Honestly, that Washington team is absurd, as the skill player talent on that team is just insane, and I wonder who will have the best career out of Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, and Ja'Lynn Polk. For now, we'll have to wait and see, but the Patriots got a gem, and it's crazy how far he's come. But what do you guys think? If you're a Washington, Texas Tech, or a Pats fan, what do you think of Ja'Lynn Polk, and who's another rookie I should cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.